Here we go.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Drop Third Strike with myself, Terry Gant in Chicago, Illinois, and my podcast partner, Beth Davy-Stofka in Denver, Colorado.
Hello, Terry from All-Star Weekend Town.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And today on this episode, we have actually a special guest. We have Jim Price, the owner and operator of Bash Sports Academy, also here in Chicago, Illinois. And we're going to talk to Jim about what's going on in baseball currently, news, happenings, et cetera, et cetera. The All-Star break, which is currently happening in Beth's hometown. And he's going to explain what Bash Sports Academy is, what kind of marvelous and amazing things happen there, and the world of like youth baseball and training, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to be really cool.
Thanks,
guys.
Really
nice
cool.
to be with you.
Excellent.
Good to have you, Jim.
So, all right, Beth, it is true. The biggest news currently in baseball, well, the biggest positive news at least, is that the All-Star game has been moved from Atlanta, Georgia to Denver, Colorado. And I got to say, if you're going to move it someplace and you were trying to like make sure people paid attention, the only place you can move it is Denver, Colorado.
This is the obvious place. There was some really interesting conversations in that like little tiny lapse of time. Was it like 4 days?
Yeah.
Between Manfred saying we're going to move it and announcing it would be Denver, right? And there were some interesting proposals, but I was just sitting quietly thinking, man, we're so laid back here. We're so low key. Just put it here, and it'll be great.
Thinking like if nothing else, it's you want to see balls hit out of the park.
Yeah.
Right. You're trying to advertise that offense. You need to move it to Denver.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. We always get these really high hopes and then things happen, right?
Right.
It's like this game I saw this past week where it was like must watch baseball game for me because the two starters were Yu Darvish and Max Scherzer, and they were certainly not the story that night, not even close. Scherzer was, oh my goodness, what was that? But when it came down to it, other guys totally stole the show.
Right.
And it's never what you think it's going to be, but it's still good, and it can still even be spectacular. And that's what I think we're hoping for here. And to the extent that all eyes will be on us, I think people will see how beautiful it is here. What a beautiful field we have. Oh my goodness, Coors Field is gorgeous. Gorgeous part of town. So many good things going on right now. Newspapers are full of things like 20 easy hikes for out-of-towners, because everybody's going to want to go up into the mountains or the foothills and experience the wilderness, and people are going to see that, but don't move here.
Currently, any forest fires anybody needs to be worried about.
Don't move here because we have really bad wildfires and we got to keep population down, right?
Hey, Beth, the stadium is in Lodo, right? That's the area they call Lodo?
That's correct. That's what they call it.
I've stayed there. It's a very cool area.
Isn't it? Yeah. See, I grew up here more or less. And so when I was a teenager, and you're a teenager, you live in the suburbs, you got to go downtown, even if that was, Denver. And Lodo was not at all like what it is now. Coors Field took empty, dusty, broken windowed buildings and completely revolutionized that part of town. It was
very cool place.
It's a very cool place.
Does Lodo stand for like lower downtown or something like that?
That's exactly what it's.
All right. Okay.
There's so many neighborhoods in Denver now that I don't know what they all stand for because they're all kind of like that. There's like a low high and a high low, and and then there's Rhino, which I can't remember what that is, and then there's North Rhino that is something else now, and I can't follow it all. I saw that the Players Alliance had a gathering, a press gathering, for the most part from 5 Points. It was an advocacy gathering. Fortunately, the Players Alliance is very consistent that way. And 5 Points is the historic African-American Denver neighborhood. Yep. And it is subject to so much gentrification that a lot of it's actually gone already. And that's kind of the downside of what you see in all these beautiful neighborhoods is you see that a lot of money is flowing in. I mean, a lot. Yeah. And it's pushing people out because they can't afford to live any longer where they have historically lived for maybe even a few generations.
Yeah.
And sometimes you wonder, you worry, did they find a place to go? Because sometimes that happens to people. They get pushed out and they can't find something. So you worry about that. There's some really good community organizations, and it was good to see that the Players Alliance was conscious of that. I'm not surprised that they were, but it was good to see that. It was good to see something happening in 5 Points. So, that's I guess all the background I have. I don't plan to go to anything because I'm not interested in crowds right now, but that's just me. Yep. I took the day off from work on Monday so I can see the home run derby with a clear conscience because I love the home run derby.
Nice. Jimmy, you a big All-Star game guy?
No. I am sad to report the All-Star game left me behind probably 30 years ago.
Wow.
Now here's what I'll say. I just saw an article about this, and I think this actually helps to explain why. 1971, I'm 10 years old. There were 22 Hall of Famers in the All-Star game. Mm-hmm. And Hall of Famers talked about what an incredible thing it was to be there among all these amazing ball players. Yes. Johnny Bench was a very young ball player, and he said it was like a dream come true. Yeah. You know, it was like being in a Hall of Fame to be, you know, walking around these guys. There's a lot of great ball players always in the All-Star game, but it's not the level that it was. I think all over baseball, it's not the level that it was.
Is part of that maybe because baseball players now have become so specialized and so hyper concerned about like their bodies. They need to be concerned about rest, and in basketball we use the term like load management a lot, right? So like there's also a thing in baseball. Is it possible now the best baseball players, they get invited to their first All-Star game or the first couple and they go, but after that point it becomes like I could really use 4 days off, right? So I'm going to take this opportunity to use 4 days off, right? So you're not going to see the days of the absolute best of the best being like, it's an honor to play next to these guys. They're kind of like, well, I hang out with these guys all the time, right? So I don't need to play here, get an inning in. I can stay home. You know, I can get some extra work in at home. I can get some extra rehab in, right? And before you know it, it's like, it is going to be, it's going to be somebody who's like a good outfielder, but like, but not a great outfielder for your team. And they also, the other rule where there must be someone represented from every team, which sometimes means when like Kansas City Royals in the game, it's a lot, you know, like, oh, all right, I guess.
Right. You got to find somebody on the Pirates to bring.
Yes, right.
You know, but no, I guess there doesn't have to be, because who is Dusty Baker doesn't have any All-Stars, and he's the guy managing the team. Isn't that the case?
For the Astros? Well, he had Altuve was hurt, and Correa just got COVID-19, so Correa's out. Bregman is hurt.
Oh yeah.
I'm naming some of these guys because they're my fantasy team. So like, there's some guys that know exactly what's going on. Damn it. It might be the case that there may be no Astros.
Yeah, I believe
you're running out of Astros.
Talking about. Yeah, that's what they were talking about on the broadcast. I think it was last night.
So it's not that nobody was elected or chosen. It's just that those who were supposed to go really can't for whatever.
Right.
Yeah. And a lot of people here were complaining, like, why isn't Trevor Story on the All-Star team? Because we certainly felt here in Denver that Trevor Story meets every definition.
Yeah. Trevor Story is an All-Star, right? Yeah, you know Trevor Story is an All-Star. The eye test tells you Trevor Story is an All-Star. You watch this guy play forever, right?
Yeah.
There's always the guys who just don't get to go, even though they really deserve to go.
Yeah.
Part of that's the function of the fans voting.
Yeah.
You know, and look, it's a fans game, and that's probably, I think, as it should be. But because of that, it's not necessarily the guys who are the most deserving.
Yeah.
And some of it, I think, is also we're now at a point where if this were 1985, let's say 85, 86, 87, some positions on the field had clear-cut all-stars by virtue of there being a player, let's say second base and shortstop, there being a player who is so defensively head and shoulders above everybody else, but that's largely what second base and shortstop did. So you get Ryan Sandberg going to the All-Star game because that guy's going to hit 35 home runs at second base. But now, let's say shortstop is so thick with talent in major leagues that Trevor Story ends up like, there's a problem we have here where Trevor Story is one of 15 amazing shortstops that are all legit All-Stars, and we can't have that. Like Fernando Tatis alone is like kind of like taking two spots in a way, right? Like you only think of that guy as the best shortstop. Everybody else now looks very good, but they don't look great next to the way that guy plays.
Yeah.
You know?
I
Yeah, this
agree.
makes me I just want to seize this opportunity, and then I'm going to switch over to just everything Jim, everything.
Yes.
But I do want to say, before we go to Jim Price, I want to say the name J.P. Crawford, because
Sure.
my friend Terry loves the Mariners,
I
and
do.
I'm very loyal to my friends, and so because of Terry, I started kind of paying attention to the Mariners this season. And towards the back in April, very first part of May, I was watching Mariners games, and really JP Crawford was tugging at my heartstrings because he looked really lost. And in my opinion, a major league shortstop is one of the best athletes on the planet. They should all be all-stars, right? Like Terry was saying. And JP Crawford just looked, you'd watch him coming off the field after an inning, and his whole face, he just looked lost. And I'm very sympathetic to that, because I feel lost most of the time, and I want to think I can lock in somehow. And so I need these guys to do that for me. And man, that guy locked in. And JP Crawford today is so different than April JP Crawford. And I'm just stoked. I'm thrilled. I love watching him play. I love the confidence in his face. I love it. And I'm like, yeah, I can do that too. He did.
Sometimes part of the trick with being a Seattle Mariner in the beginning of the season is waking up and realizing you're a Seattle Mariner and you have to overcome it, right? Like all the Mariners are full of young talent, but they're not so talented that they're about to run away with the division. They're over 500 right now, which they could be 15 games under being the Mariners, right? And it's just one of those things where they wake up, and I'm sure it's like, we should be good, but I know we're just not there yet. We're going to get there, but first we got to play these baseball games, right? And it's a challenge being a Mariner, man. You can tell. There's so many good guys there, like Mitch Haniger and Ty France and JP Crawford and Kyle Seager's my guy. There's so many great guys playing there, but it's there's something missing, and you just know moves are going to be made. They just won't be the moves that get you over the hump.
Yeah.
They're going to be the moves that keep you the Mariners.
Yeah.
Right, always right there.
Yes.
Beth, you actually just have a wonderful opportunity for a segue here.
Okay.
Because what you just talked about with JP and the transformation, I guess I would call it, is the whole reason I do what I do. And that is to see that light go on for kids, and to be able to witness those moments. That's the gold for me.
Absolutely.
That's why I became a coach, and I love it. So I think in my heart of hearts, I'm probably a teacher, but I would never ever pretend to walk into a classroom and teach anybody anything. But I really love when you're working with a young ball player, and they're struggling, and then suddenly things click, and that face, like you were just talking about, changes. It changes. There's this confidence that suddenly appears, and it's an amazing thing.
Now, did you know that was going to happen when you went into this? When you founded Bash Sports Academy, is what I'm assuming, right? You're the founder?
I did. We're heading to our 15th anniversary in August.
Hey, congratulations.
Thank you. But I had been coaching for about 10 years before I did that. And I had my arm twisted to coach a little league team by the guy who was the president, who I knew, and I eventually became the president of the league. And you realize that a big part of your job is twisting arms to get coaches. And something happened at the end of that first year that I was coaching, where a mom came up to me and said, I really want to thank you for all the time that you spent with my son. He has two older brothers who were good ball players, and he thought he was going to walk out and just be like his brothers. And when he wasn't, he was tremendously discouraged, and he wanted to quit. And she said to me, and you worked with him, and he got better, and he didn't quit. He actually enjoyed the game. And I walked away from that conversation. I at the time, I was in the advertising business. And I thought, there is nothing I do every day that gives me the opportunity to feel that. And it was addictive. It was like a shot of heroin. And I know it's a really bad analogy, but
no, it's an excellent analogy. Everybody plan to be a teacher. It's like taking heroin.
Social cocaine.
It's the
I want to be
best
clear,
career
I've never
ever.
tried heroin. So it's got to be what heroin I think would be like. No, it's really it's that shot of adrenaline and the endorphins, whatever it is. I was filled with it, and I was able to continue finding that feeling on a very regular basis working with kids.
Well, I can connect that for you in the sense that I recently had a coaching session at my dance studio with a traveling coach, very, very high level coaches, the coaches kind of thing. And for a couple of weeks, my dance teacher had been practicing this move with me. And so the coach says, well, show us what you've got. And I was with a different teacher and he led me through this. It's a complicated maneuver and we went all the way through it. My teacher who had been working on this with me, I mean, she practically did a backflip. She was so excited at having seen me execute this variation on this, thing in waltz that she practically did a backflip right there on the floor. And I think that's what you're talking about.
It's just a fantastic feeling.
Yeah.
And now I eventually, really what happened though is I burned out of advertising. Gee, what a surprise. That almost never happens. And I when you take the blinders off, because you think to yourself, okay, so what in the wide world of sports do I know how to do besides what I do every day? And like I said, I'd been coaching for about 10 years at that point. So I thought, all right, so baseball and kids, great. Mm-hmm. How do I make a living doing that? Mm-hmm. There was no place like the place we built on the north side of Chicago at the time. There were places like that were in the suburbs, in the northern suburbs, the western suburbs, southern suburbs. And I thought, well, I bet we could do this. I bet we could put this together and make this work. We have so many kids playing ball around here. And I basically just took my business background and put it into real world homework and figured it all out. And
all right. So for the sake of our listeners, when you say there was no place like Bash Sports Academy, what is Bash Sports Academy like?
So we are an indoor baseball and softball training academy. We have a 15,000 square foot building. It's an old warehouse. Really great lighting, fully artificial turfed. We have tons of netting up there, so we divided the space up. We have 5 hitting cages. We have an open area, which my advertising background allowed me to be very, very clever in naming it the open area, because it's open. Unless we slide some netting, which we have available to us, and we can actually divide that up into hitting cages. And what we do is we do a lot of instruction for boys and girls, and even we have people coming in as old as mid 70s that are still playing men's league baseball. So we don't do a lot of.
I know a guy who literally does that. Yeah, I know a guy. I won't use his last name, but his first name's Steve, and he absolutely is in an over like a certain age baseball league, and they play like 2 or 3 times a week. Yeah,
these guys are serious, and I'm telling you, there are at least 3 guys that are over 70 that come into our place and still play. They're in a 65 and over league.
Yeah,
I've never seen a game. I'm not sure I want to.
I kind of want to, but it's also kind of like if I just sometimes part of my brain is like an over 70 league. If something happens to a guy out there, I don't know if I want to witness it, right? Like I don't know, I just don't know. But also they're in a league, so they got to be good, presumably.
They have fun, and that's all that really matters. So I'll just tell you, about 5 years ago, one of the guys who used to come into our place is an orthopedic surgeon. And at the time, I think he was probably around 60. And he told me that he had thought of not playing. And his wife said, you can't stop playing. Most of your patients come from the guys in the league.
This is the Grim Reaper of baseball.
Revenue for him.
He's out there just tearing ACLs and, tearing Achilles, just getting clients.
Yeah.
The typhoid Mary of baseball.
Right. No, he walks around and hands his card out to guys laying on the ground.
That's phenomenal.
Well, it's worth remembering also that all of us are going to be over 70 someday.
God willing.
Maybe we'd like to be playing baseball.
I would.
Yeah.
I would. Yeah. But mostly it's kids, high school kids. We have college kids who come back on a very regular basis as well, who've come through our place. We like I said, we teach, so we have a lot of professional coaches on our staff. We have people who do memberships. They take memberships and they come in to train on their own, most of the time with dad. They come in and they grab a cage and they hit or they throw, especially in the winter. They do defensive work, and we work with we probably do more private lessons than we've ever done before. I mean, our business has catapulted during the pandemic.
Wow.
Baseball is a really good social distancing sport.
You're right.
And when there was no basketball, when there was no football, when there was no soccer, there was still baseball. And I'm proud of how we handled everything. We went by the book on everything, even reducing our capacities in our place to the point where I felt comfortable. And I was a pretty strict adherent to everything personally. And so if I didn't feel comfortable, I didn't expect anybody else to feel comfortable. So we handled everything great. And we did not have any kind of big spreads of anything, of COVID, I should say, not anything, but COVID. Every once in a while we'd hear of somebody and they would call, they would do the right thing and they would let us know. But it didn't get past that person. So it was good. So we do a ton of instruction these days. We do teams instruction. We have teams and entire organizations that send their travel kids to us to work preseason. And then when it's the nice weather, we're outside doing camps. And my favorite thing that we do, which is sandlot baseball every Friday morning. I took the game that I grew up playing with my friends, and I am handing it to these kids. It is so much fun. The kids don't play these days without the grown-ups telling them it's time to play, and don't do anything until I tell you what to do. And it's a recipe for raising followers, in my opinion. And I think we're seeing a lot of that. So I thought, in my little corner of the world, if I can have an effect on this, I'm going to try to bring back pickup baseball, and the game belongs to the kids. So we have adults out there because parents don't want to leave their kids out by themselves, and that's the one drawback to, I think, the one reason that most kids don't play by themselves. And so we have adults that are supervising but not coaching. So the kids play the game themselves, they officiate the game themselves, they choose their teams, they do all of it just like I did when I was a kid, and they have a blast. It's really fun to watch. And this is our 5th year of doing that.
Wow.
So, I have a question about that. Is it like just generally parents who are already connected to the organization just bring their kids by on a Friday morning, or do neighborhood kids also just cruise by and they're like, hey, what's going on here? Maybe it's a Friday morning game.
So unfortunately, Terry, liability, there's that great word, right?
Yeah.
I have to have these kids signed up in advance.
Got it. Okay.
I wish we could do that.
Like open it up to the neighborhood. Yeah.
And just whoever shows up.
Isn't there also like a thing too where part of it is you need kids in the neighborhood playing the game to begin with who would wander over?
Oh yeah. Well, and that's the thing, is we do this every Friday.
Yeah.
So if a kid comes by on a Friday and sees what's going on, he probably signs up next Friday.
Right. Okay. He's signing up in advance, but he could just walk in.
Yeah. Right.
He or she. Yeah.
And I'll say the great thing was, after about half the first season, we had the guys I called the bike brigade. I look up and there's like 6 kids all riding their bikes over.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, now we're going back in time, right? These kids are showing up. The bikes are all piled up together, and just like they were when I was young. Let's face it, 90% of the kids show up in the back seat of mom's car, but we still have the bike brigade, and that's terrific. I love seeing that, kids coming on their own. So most of the kids come from pretty close by. We're over at Wells Park. I point like it's like you could see where I'm pointing.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Can you describe the neighborhood around Wells Park just for context?
So it used to be a very working class neighborhood, and really wasn't all that long ago. It's a higher end neighborhood these days. The park is beautiful, and that's actually where we do all of our camps as well. And I do it there because that's where I was very involved in the league. So I have a very, very good working relationship with park district people there.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it's
homes instead of office buildings or stores or something like that.
Yeah, there's two streets that have stores, and then there's two streets that have homes that surround the park. But it's a really, really wonderful park. The old alderman used to walk through there on the way to his office every single day.
Oh, wow.
And I would hear from him when I was the president of the league on a Monday if he walked through and he saw litter, and he thought it was probably from the baseball league people. So it's a very, very well kept park, and the ball fields are always in use, and not usually during the day. So that's when we go out there with our camps and with Santa.
Oh yeah.
So
how far is it from the sports academy itself?
About a mile.
Okay. So this whole concept of picking up an old warehouse and transforming it, was it a warehouse kind of standing by itself, or were there other warehouses around that were also
there? It's an area that's referred to as the Addison Industrial Corridor, and as you can imagine, in Chicago there wasn't much industrial going on.
Yeah.
And so there's still those buildings, but most of them have been repurposed at this point. I will say that we were among the first to do that. I knew this is the type of building we needed, and it took me a year and a half to find it, because on the north side of Chicago, a lot of that stuff has disappeared.
It's all torn down,
because industry disappeared.
Right. There's a lot of condos now sitting on spaces where there were old factories and things like that.
Exactly.
Where Bash Sports Academy is currently, there's a coffee roaster. There's people have done some really cool, interesting things, but it's also right next to definitely a very residential community, right?
Yes.
So there's part of there's a river that runs back behind there that was also used for industrial purposes. So it's the neighborhood's very mixed use, but this one section has several old kind of factory buildings in it that have all been repurposed and kind of saved from a wrecking ball in a cool sort of way.
Yeah. Well, in fact, I'll tell you that the building you're talking about, Terry, one of my partners bought that building because I found that it was being foreclosed on and it was totally dilapidated. And now there's the coffee guys, there's a brewery and a distillery, and a beautiful event venue where my son just happened to get married last Friday.
Congratulations!
Thank you. My young ball player, who's no longer young and no longer playing ball. So it's an interesting neighborhood, and like I said, we've been there. We'll be closing down 15 years in about a month.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, would it be fair to say, just as a rule of thumb, just in sum, you wanted to connect with people in this really, well, especially with kids, in this really great and deep way in baseball, and see that light come on?
Yeah, it's exactly what it is, and it's actually bigger than that, Beth. And I was at the American Baseball Coaches Association convention when it was in Chicago. It's probably about 7 or 8 years ago now, and there was a man there who was his name is Rod Olson, and he is a coach's coach. He is an organization that teaches coaches to be better coaches, all the way up through the professional ranks. And he spoke in front of about 5,000 high school and college coaches. And I want to tell you that in the first 5 minutes, I was riveted, and I turned the recording device on my phone on because I didn't want to miss anything. But this is the way he put it, and I realized that this is what I've been thinking, but just didn't have the words yet. We mentor kids through baseball.
Mm-hmm.
We're not making major leaguers. We're trying to make better people. And baseball is a game that teaches you so much when you play it, if you're paying attention. And what he said was great. He said, he talked to the coaches. He said, you guys won't know how good a job you've done for 20 or 30 more years until you see how those kids turned out.
Mm-hmm.
That's really true. Yeah.
And
it's not an instant gratification business.
No, not at all. And so look, I love when the light goes on. It's wonderful because it's about the confidence that the kid now has.
Yeah.
But for me, it's much bigger than that. And I am really excited because I have a ton of kids now that are no longer kids, that are grown up and that started at our place and have graduated college, have jobs, have families, some of them. It's incredibly gratifying. So it's a really good business. It's not a great business if you want to make a lot of money, but it's a really good business to be in if you really want to be happy.
Are you organizing a 15th anniversary softball game?
Terry, I got to tell you, I didn't think we'd be organizing 15th anniversary anything because
right. It's true.
Well, I didn't know the pandemic, what was going to happen.
Right.
I mean, we're really in a position where we could do something kind of fun now.
Yeah.
But I've been caught a little bit behind. So we'll put something together. But
that's awesome.
Sure what yet? Not sure what.
That is awesome. So wow. So I think we're just so everybody knows, I sent a 6-point list of things to talk about, and I think that we've just really hit hopes fulfilled and hopes for what could be. I think we're even talking about hopes fulfilled in terms of being able to see these students who go through your academy. You're able to see them down the road, whereas for most teachers, I would put myself in this category. I will never see the effects of what I've done. So I just have to do the very best I can in the moment and let it go.
Yeah, Jim, you might not know it, but Beth is an ethicist. So the effects of Beth's teaching come out, and you don't want to see any of your students' names in the news.
Well, yeah, right. It's like you could think you've done a good job when you don't hear anything.
Right. No news is great news.
Yeah, exactly.
But the baseball community, the baseball community is so tight knit in Chicago. Everybody knows everybody else, and the kids who go through these programs, whether they're the high school programs or the youth programs or stuff, organizations like mine, come back.
Yeah,
they visit, and especially from college. I get T-shirts from kids from their schools. And, they catch you up on what's going on. Or every once in a while, I'll run into a parent of a kid, and they'll say, oh, yeah, he graduated from college last year. I was go, come on, wait a minute. That doesn't make any sense. He's 16.
Yeah.
But so I do get to hear a fair amount of what all of our ex-students are doing, or at least a lot of them. So
that's a
really
powerful statement about the kind of connection that you make, that they want you to know how they're doing down the road.
Yeah, it's
that's
really nice.
Very powerful connection.
It feels very special.
Yeah, it actually really is really special. Yeah.
I used to say this. I don't know. It's a chicken or the egg. I don't know whether baseball kids are good kids or baseball makes good kids. But somehow those two things seem to go hand in hand. And I apologize because I speak a lot about baseball because baseball is my background. And softball sort of came into being about 6 or 7 years ago in a meaningful way on the north side here. And we do a fair amount of softball, but my default is always to go back to baseball.
Yep.
So the truth is, there's more of a, it's sort of more in the blood for boys and men with baseball than I've seen with girls. Girls are tremendous supporters of each other on the field in ways that the boys do not even get close to. I have watched girls softball teams and the way they support each other and cheer for each other and are overtly in each other's corner. And even young boys are just too cool to allow anyone to see them act like that. But there isn't quite the same like baseball in the blood type of feeling necessarily. There is certainly with some of the girls, but not nearly to the extent as with boys. And I think that's reflected in how easy it is for me to find guys who want to coach baseball after they're done playing versus women who want to coach softball after they're done playing. It's much more difficult to find.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's quite a comment. What do you think it is, to stray from youth baseball for a moment? What do you think it is about Major League Baseball that draws women?
I don't know. I wish I had an answer for you on that. Look, my wife is a huge baseball fan. She never played baseball. She never played softball. She just loves to watch. And every town that we go to, if there's a baseball stadium, major league or minor league, we're there.
Yeah.
And she's into it. And so I'm really blessed with that. And I know a lot of women who love watching baseball, who live and die with the Cubs. But it's just interesting to me because I know they're of an age where I'm 60. I know they're of an age where they didn't play when they were kids. Girls just did not play those sports 50 years ago. And yet they developed a love for the game. So I don't know what to attribute that to. I'm glad.
Maybe it's like what I've noticed of my female friends who are sports fans, right? Because of an age where more than likely they didn't grow up playing the sport, but they did grow up possibly around families that were involved in being fans of the thing, right? So maybe you didn't have a bunch of, maybe like a lot of my female friends don't necessarily have athletes in their families, so they didn't have games to go to because their families were involved in it, but they did have games on and families gathered around the set, right? They had games going on in the neighborhood, and if there were brothers playing, they would go see those. But wasn't it as interesting as watching the Cubs, the Sox, right? So as adults, the love of baseball is still there for them because it's a connection to sort of how they grew up, and the particular. I get stories all the time about the particular relatives in their families who instilled that love of baseball in them. Right. So while baseball itself isn't doing such a great job of marketing directly to women, besides like pink bats at Mother's Day, right? Like the game did its job years ago when no one expected to be doing that job. And so women are into the game now, right? Baseball could be doing a lot better with women trying to currently attract them to the game. I think it really isn't. It's the same as it's not really trying to attract African Americans, which we always talk about, But I think that's kind of why we have female fans, so many female fans into it now, is it's almost like the family tradition that you're still kind of holding on to. It goes into other sports too, but I think for baseball especially.
Yeah. And then there's my daughter who grew up in a family of people who love sports and love baseball specifically. And her response is sports. Yay.
I'm out. Yeah. If you're going left, I'm going right. Yep.
Well, it may not always be that way. This actually makes me want to start talking to going to games and talking to women in the sitting around me in the stands, what brought you here, what captures you about this game, because I can't explain why I love baseball. I just can't. Right. I don't have any idea. I didn't come to baseball until I was 23 or 24 years old, probably. Yeah. And it's because I had a boyfriend at the time. I was living in Manhattan. It was 1985. And I had a boyfriend who was really into baseball because he was from New York, and people from New York are really into baseball. Yeah. So one day he had a game on yet again, and I said, well, okay, I can either snort and roll my eyes and try to make him quit, or I can get curious, like, what is this thing you're staring at? Yeah. Right. That's what I did, and he taught me what I knew about the game for that time, and it was fortunate that it was the time of the Mets. The 80s Mets. And so I got to see some extraordinary things. I got to ride a really high high, but I've never stopped loving baseball. And I'm not even sure I can articulate. To me, it is so beautiful. And it's
It truly is.
Yeah, it's hard to put beauty into words, but it is just beautiful.
I was struck when I read Doris Kearns Goodwin's autobiography, and her absolute love for the Brooklyn Dodgers, and that she would. And I don't know if you've read it. She describes, because she would listen to the games on the radio, and her dad taught her to keep score, and she would keep score of the game while she was listening to it. And when her father would come home from work, they would sit at the dinner table, and she would recount the game to him using her scorecard. And she said that's where she got her storytelling skills from.
Yeah.
But she just was a huge, huge fan of her team and of the game. And I know so many women like that. And you're right, Terry. It's not like it's cultivated by baseball.
Baseball's done nothing to really help that along.
They don't even have Ladies' Day anymore.
They don't, right? They just they've benefited by butts in the seats is really what it is. They'll put it on camera, like, look at this, check out our stands, look at this diversity in the stands, look at those ladies having a great time eating those nachos. But they're not thinking about legit what gets them there and what keeps them coming back year after year.
Yeah.
And it's not, and we know it also isn't about whether or not your team wins. Right? Because there's a lot of winning teams where no one's in the stands. That's not it at all. It's absolutely not that. It is about culture, and it's about tradition and history. A lot of it's familial. It's that kind of thing, because the game wants to take advantage of it by showing it in a beer commercial marketing piece, but not in the sense of we can actually do something here. I think you would, Beth, if you were if you just even stayed outside, if you went down the course field and just hung out outside the stadium with, just your phone as a recorder, and the fans who were going to games, and you just asked a few ladies these questions, you get some interesting stories.
Yeah. I think I want to do that. I really think I want to do that. That would be pretty cool.
You'd be the Terry Gross of Lot B.
That's great. I love it. I love it.
That'd be pretty great. Yeah. No, I'm probably going to do that, Terry. Seriously. Yeah, I'm probably going to do that. I only know one woman who's just a few years older than I am, and she came to baseball even later. I think she came to baseball about 10 years ago, and she just says, I don't know what it is. It's just so beautiful. And that's a thing, but the storytelling, every game is a story. Every game is a lot of stories. There's stories within stories. And as we were saying near the beginning, it's not even the story you thought it was going to be.
That's baseball. It's the unexpected. It's constant, right?
Yeah.
It's sports in general. Sports are random and chaotic.
That's
by their nature. And I went to the ball game the other night when the Cubs were playing the Phillies, and there were a couple of Phillies fans sitting behind me, and we were talking a little bit. And Harper hits 3 shots that I think each one of them was probably 110 miles an hour, and each one of them was an out.
Yep.
Wow.
And the 4th ball he hits is a dribbler down the third base line that plays off the shift, and he ends up with a double. And I turned to the guys behind me and I said, 3 enormous shots, and the one he gets on base on.
That's the most baseball thing ever.
And the guy goes, that's baseball.
Yeah, that's the most baseball thing ever.
Yep.
That's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah.
I saw a clip.
Know what's going to happen.
I saw a clip yesterday and it's because cricket fans have a similar kind of obsession with their game that baseball fans have. And there was a cricket play that I don't see a lot of cricket here in the States, right? And I don't understand the game very much. But there was a play in I'm guessing I'd call what she's doing playing in the outfield, because cricket's a big circle. But the comment was what had happened was someone hit a ball. I guess I'm imagining it in the air because there's the ropes that constitute what would be the outfield wall, right? And the outfielder, or the person I'm going to call an outfielder, is going to catch the ball. But apparently, if any part of her body touches the rope or goes over it while holding the ball, if she's holding the ball, it is 6 runs for the opposing team. It counts as 6 runs, 6 points, right? So what she did was, while the ball was in the air, she's drifting back towards the rope. She knows where she is. She smacks the ball up in the air so that her body takes her over the rope. She doesn't have momentum taking her over the rope, right? She smacks the ball up in the air, because her momentum taking over the rope, and then she leaps back in bounds before it catches the ball and comes down with it.
Oh,
so in other words, eat your heart out, Nando.
Right?
That's
like
great.
This is the most Ken Griffey thing I've ever seen in a sport that wasn't baseball, right?
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, now sometime this summer I got a cricket match, because if that can happen, like I recognize that as like in baseball, it's like somebody trying to rob someone of a home run, but in order to do it, smacking the ball up in the air once it's already over the fence, back into the field to play to catch it, which I've never seen. Right?
Now there's a rule in baseball that would require you to do that. Do you know the rule?
That require you to do it.
Yeah, that would require you to do that if you wanted to get an out and not give up a run.
And not give the ball can't touch anything once it's over the fence, right? Like it can't.
No, that's
not it.
You're cold.
What is it? Yeah, I don't know this one. This seems
so. If you carry the ball out of play, the runners get to go to the next base. They get to advance. So if you stand on that side wall to make a catch of a foul pop-up,
yeah,
and you then fall into the stands, the runners advance. So
okay, all right.
You would
I think that's what you mean.
Right,
smack the ball back into the field and play to catch it.
You would exactly have to do what that woman did in order to avoid giving up a run if that runner was on third base.
Because you were allowed to chase a ball in the foul territory and catch it for an out. Right. But you're not allowed to reach foul territory, go into the stands first in order to get.
You can't carry the ball out of play.
Right. To land in foul territory to call it an out.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. If you catch it in fair territory, you try to land in foul territory to call it an out. It is runners advance one base.
Right. If you carry the ball out of play, the runners advance one base.
It's an outfield balk.
That woman did.
It's an outfield balk. Is what this is.
There you go. And maybe they call it that even. I don't even know. But yeah,
I've never seen it, but now I kind of get it. I kind of understand. Yeah.
It happened this year actually with the Cubs.
Really?
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it was Bryant who fell into the stands after making the catch.
Okay.
And they, and it's all very calm. Everyone knows it. The umpire goes, it's a catch, and he goes, and now the runners advance.
Wow. So it's one out, but everybody moves up one.
Yep. So you'd have to do what that woman did.
Smack it back. Because that was the coolest thing.
Play and make the catch.
I was like, sign that shit. You find her now. Like,
yeah.
Give her a check.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, Jim, I've never seen that. I mean, I'm not disputing it. I'm just going to say that must be pretty rare.
It is rare and it's crazy. And like I said, I saw it earlier this year. It would have happened, I think last night. Rizzo went into the net and didn't quite catch the ball, but there were guys on base. And had he caught that ball, he had fallen into the stands, and they would have given the runners because it's more difficult now because of those nets.
The nets make it harder.
Yeah.
So it's really and all these great catches that you've seen, guys diving into the stands.
Yeah.
Most of the time there isn't anybody on base.
Right.
Yeah, which eliminates seeing that more often than we would. But now with the nets there, we might see it a little more often. It might.
I think so.
Happening might pick up. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I was watching the Cubs, Brewers Reds last night because I thought that should be the game of the day for me, and saw that thing with Christian Yelich. I don't know if you guys saw this, but
I did see it.
Did you? Yeah, I'd never seen that before. Terry, did you? I don't know if you're watching. He passed first, and I think he thought he was out, right? But
no, I think he thought the ball had the ball had actually gone past first base, but the second baseman was backing it up, and he made the slightest move to second base.
Towards second base. Yeah.
The slightest move.
It's a little league play. This is a little league play.
It was so minute.
Totally little league play.
I mean, it was so minute. You almost had to be told to look for it in order to see it. It was that minute.
When playing ball, it's the first thing I look for every time I'm backing up first or I'm playing second. Which direction does that guy even look? If he looks like he's going, I'm throwing it. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think all Yelich did was shift his eyes a little bit that way, and maybe his eyebrow just like twitched a bit in the
It might have been a
direction
little more than that.
with his back to the umpire, and he's
It was a
still out.
twitch. It was a twitch.
It was a
Yeah.
But the second baseman picked up the ball, just walked over to him and tagged him.
just
And
like
the
that.
umpire emphatically called him out.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
And
It was
Yelich got
amazing.
thrown out.
yeah. And I can't say for sure that's the first time I ever saw that because I've been watching baseball for a long time, but that's the first time I remember having seen it.
Well, you think like for major leaguers, like instinctively, it's like it should be drilled in them. All right, you're not going to second, turn to the right.
Yeah.
Right? Don't turn left.
It was one of those things where you
Yeah.
think the ball's gotten away from the fielder.
Yeah.
You think it's gone wild. You think you can
You
get
got time to get back. Yeah.
Yeah, but then you realize, no, I don't. But I mean, it was such a minute twitch.
That's a heads up play.
I
take
want
it.
to say that if he looks at the replay, if Yelich looks at the replay, he's going to see
Yeah,
that he did. It was just the slightest sort of twitch.
Yeah.
And I think he did take a half a step towards second and then just stopped.
see,
Okay.
I think it just his
But
femur moved
completely
in the
stopped.
direction of second. Just his femur rotated a little bit.
That's baseball.
And I'm willing to bet you that he knew it and
Yeah.
thought, I really hope this guy doesn't tag me.
Yep. I don't want to sprint back.
Yeah.
If I
Right,
sprint back, then he knows.
Right. I'm not going to give anything away. I'm just going to stand here and hope that he didn't notice.
Yeah, and then when I find out I'm out, I'm going to scream about it till you throw me out of the game. Was
That's it.
I
That's that's saving face right there.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful.
I guess so. Yeah.
can't stand Christian Yelich because I'm a Cub fan. That's
Right,
all.
right.
Okay. I was gonna say, what did he do to you?
I love him as a player. I have very, very deep feelings about my team, Terry.
Okay.
No offense,
Okay.
Beth, but I still hate the Mets. from
Okay, then that's all
1969.
right.
1969, I still hate them.
No, in this town, that's real. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's an enduring hatred. Yeah. I mean,
In fact, I'll tie it into Bash. I'll
okay.
tie it into Bash. So, and I think anyone who's ever started a business can identify with this. Things come up as you're going down that road that you're trying to open your business. Things come
Sure.
up, and every once in a while, something comes up that you look at and you think, "Oh, this is the one that's going to derail this whole thing.
Yeah.
This is the challenge we're not going to be able to overcome." And I had a couple of those. And after the second one, I realized I was getting too stressed out about that. I needed to have some sort of a visual that would help me smile a little bit when these things come up. And I decided that every challenge that came up was the 69 Mets. And I would say to myself, I am not letting those guys break my heart again.
Oh
An
wow.
8-year-old boy in 1969, and I would say, no, Tom Seaver, not happening. We're gonna get past this, right? Tommy Agee, screw you. You're not getting the best of me again.
So that's how you pull up your socks and keep going. Is on the heels of a loss, of a defeat. That's how you pull.
That
up
was
your
it.
socks and keep
Yeah,
going.
as any baseball player would do.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Or fans.
Use it,
for that
use
matter,
it to
yeah.
get back up again and
Sure.
dust yourself off and move on.
Yeah, it's all it's over. It's over. Move on to the next thing. That's I just got bored with the Mets. So they were really exciting in the 80s, but then they stopped.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, so I got bored and moved on. I'm not loyal to any particular team. I get very loyal to players.
Yes. Okay. All right. Because I was gonna say you are loyal to one particular team, as far as I know, but really it's because there's one player on that team.
Yeah.
If Yadier Molina changed teams tomorrow, your loyalty would shift.
Yeah. Wherever Max Scherzer is.
Yes, wherever Max Scherzer is, that's the team you're cheering for.
Yeah.
It's hard not to be a Yachty fan.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, okay, so that's an old story with me and Terry because I was a Yachty fan wherever. Well, I mean, I didn't have to worry about where Yachty was. I always knew where he was, and so I was all through the 2000s. I was all about the Cardinals, except for 2005 when I was all about the White Sox, and I don't know why. It was like April 1st. I was a White Sox fan. It wasn't like I knew they were going to win. It was a great year for me, right? But 2006, I was right back in there with the Cardinals all the way through that decade. Yachty was, he was just, oh my goodness. But then, things changed, right? I'm not,
My son,
am I? How is Yachty still playing? Oh my goodness. Well, I love him.
he's not just still playing, he's playing well. Although I have to say,
No.
last night he had a terrible game.
Oh, really?
And it was utterly shocking to see. Yeah, 2 balls that got past him that shouldn't have, and he dropped a pop-up.
Oh dear. Well,
Yeah.
Scherzer had a horrible game. I don't know if you saw
It's
that.
certainly, it certainly happens, but it's rare. You know, my son was a catcher, and he was just the biggest Yadier Molina fan.
Yeah.
And with good reason. With good reason. The guy really was the gold standard.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I've got my memory wrong, because I don't think he's been playing as long as I'm saying he's been playing. But he's
been playing longer than you think.
Yeah.
He's 38.
Yeah, Yadi's been playing forever.
I know
You
he
know?
was in 2006 because I just have such vivid memories, especially the NLCS in 2006. So vivid that I've actually gone back and checked and rechecked them because of the Andy Chavez play, and because of the way Scott Rowland reacted, and because of the way Beltran lost it for the Mets. And I was rooting for the Cardinals, so that tells you my loyalties to the Mets. They died after 10 years. So
Baseball has this thing where there's just some guys who it's almost like they just keep showing up to the park, so they keep letting them play. Right?
Yeah.
Joey Votto is one of those guys for me. Right.
Yeah.
Every time I turn on a game, if I see a Reds game and Joey Votto's in, it's almost like, man, Joey Votto won't retire. But then Joey Votto gets 2 hits, and it's like, holy crap! Like they gave him keys to the ballpark, like he's just not leaving.
Yeah,
You know, Nelson Cruz is one of those guys. Like Nelson Cruz is still there. You know, like that's a thing. There's just guys out there. Like I didn't realize Charlie Morton was as old as he was. Me and Beth were doing a thing earlier in the season. We were talking about the all old guy team.
Yeah.
And like Charlie Morton's like 40. You know, like I didn't hear about this guy. It seemed like until like 5 years ago, right? But he's been around forever.
And Adam Wainwright's up there too, right?
Adam Wainwright is up there.
40.
Yep.
40.
Yep.
2 years ago, I was at the Sox game sitting in the bleachers, and Nelson Cruz hit 3 home runs, all near us.
Oh.
And each one was like a rocket shot.
Yeah. Mickey's still playing. You know? Like,
right.
I think I'm pretty sure Mickey's still playing. I think he's still on the Detroit Tigers.
Yep. He's chasing some records.
Yeah.
Mickey who?
Mickey. Miguel Cabrera.
Yeah.
Mickey.
Yeah.
It's like Mickey Stanley, Mickey
Tettleton.
No,
and Tettleton played for a long time too. I think Mickey Tettleton had a long career.
I think there's several young players now whose middle name is Jeter. So you might pretty soon be hearing about Jeets doing something and be like, what?
Yeah, absolutely.
He's still playing?
Absolutely.
That'd be a new guy. Well, when Jeffrey Paternostro was on for Baseball Prospectus, the purpose of that conversation that we had with him was, we initiated it thinking that we could talk about whether eliminating the draft could serve to increase the participation of African American kids. Well, actually, no, we didn't go to kids. We got to kids. We started with, athletes finishing high school or college, being quickly into the major leagues, or even in the major leagues at all, if the draft were eliminated. And I think that Jeffrey thought probably so, except that there would still be that 5-year acclimation period from signing to actually being big leagues ready. And that's no small thing, right? I mean, we saw that with Gary Kelnick this year. You don't just say, I'm good, I'm going to play in the majors. Yeah. No, you're not. Even if a team's going to try to save face and put you there, you're going to have to go back. So maybe that's not the answer, but it did turn our conversation around to talking about kids and the difficulties that kids face in getting noticed, for example, with travel ball, I guess they're calling it, or just having the money or
the resources necessary to do travel ball.
Yeah. So if the resources aren't there, what it really kind of boiled down to in the end, when we stripped it all the way down to the bottom line, it was really having opportunity. And it wasn't just opportunity to see, even though we agree here with Drop Third Strike that representation matters, it's not really even just a matter of seeing somebody who looks like you playing baseball, but you still even need to just have the opportunity to play baseball. And I don't remember which one it was. I think it might have been Terry or it might have been Jeff. I remember just talking about the places. Terry had compiled a list of, I think, the top 10 or 11 places that have the highest concentration of African-American residents, correct?
Right. Yep.
And somebody came up with the idea of taking over empty warehouses and turning them into baseball academies, at which point Terry said, I know somebody who's done that. And so,
no guy.
It's like, my
I got a
goodness.
guy.
My goodness, really? So, you know, the way we're looking at it here is that you're here today because in our view, Jim Price has the answer. He is the walking embodied solution to the problem that we're facing and not seeing African-American participation in the sport growing at the pace that it should or that it could.
So I think it starts with the lack of play, period, in the African-American community. There's just not baseball being played the way it is in other areas. I went down to Englewood with Kerry Wood a couple of years in a row. Kerry Wood did a full week of camp down there at Ogden Park, and free. They had 300 kids come out. I went down there. I got some high school coaches involved, and they got their players involved, and so we had a lot of people. And Kerry is this guy is all in these communities. He really does an amazing job reaching out into sort of the lower income communities and bringing clothes to kids in some of these schools, winter clothes, pumping up schools where the principal has done an amazing job with a lot of challenges. But he wanted to start bringing baseball. And I will say that it was stunning to me how so many of these kids had never played, even at 11 and 12. You know, I was watching skill levels that were more of the 7-year-olds that I would see on a regular basis. You know, they were older and they were bigger and they were stronger and they were athletic, but they just had never played.
Yeah.
So I think that, and there are leagues in the African-American communities, but it's just not a game that's played much aside from those leagues. And so I think that somehow there has to be inroads made right there. You have to start kids early with a love for the game.
Yeah.
You know, I it's funny, the flip side of the coin in the areas that I work in, literally last night, I got an email from somebody asking if we did private lessons for 5-year-olds.
Yeah.
And my stock answer is, at 5, don't
Yeah.
do that.
That's
right?
a dandelion picking kid for sure, right? Let them go ahead and pick dandelions.
Go play with your kid at 5.
Yeah.
Like, your kid wants to play catch with dad or even mom, and show how much the game is fun for you, because the kids will respond to your love for the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have to start by building the enjoyment of the game for kids at a young age. And I don't care what color you are, what neighborhood you come from, or what the sport is, or what the activity is. You've got to have mentorship that reflects how much this means to someone that they look up to. And then that's how it's contagious, right? That's how you catch it. And so you've got to start there. I know plenty of really great coaches in the African-American communities, and they just don't have as much in the way of participation to work with kids. You know, the guy who comes to mind off the top of my head is Ernie Radcliffe, who's at Morgan Park. He was actually just they did a whole big thing on him on Channel 2 News, because the kids that he coaches come out of there. You talk about mentoring kids through baseball. That's what he does. And those kids all come out of there with focus and with understanding of what they have to do just to be successful in life, as well as be better baseball players. But so I think there's plenty of mentors out there, but there just isn't enough participation yet. So when you get more participation, then you can start to see where you can start to grow back the highly skilled players, you know, that you can now start to get some recognition for. Now, I'm going to also tell you a quick little story that I know from several years ago. I have a guy that I'm friendly with who actually worked at my place teaching pitching for a number of years, who's a pro scout. He is an African-American. He grew up in Hyde Park, pitched in the big leagues for a little while. And he has worked tirelessly to try to get other scouts to scout kids in the city, to scout urban kids.
Sure.
And every once in a while, one of those urban kids that's really high on somebody's radar ends up doing something stupid. And the scouts go, what am I wasting my time for? And this guy, this coach, this scout that I'm friendly with, it drives him nuts, because he works so hard to try to get the scouts into that community, and it's so easily, that it's so easily taken away.
Right.
And so then they're reluctant to come back and spend time on some of the inner city kids. It's terrible, because it paints them all with the brush, right? But when it's hard enough to get those guys to come, and then something happens to the guy or something that was with the guy that they're all looking at. It was a kid I knew very well, the last one, and he was in high school. And
a lot of it too is the problem we have is, like, when it's from two different directions, right? You don't have access a lot of times, let's say on the south and west sides of Chicago, to fields to play, organized activities. There's leagues for sure, but not nearly enough. So what is needed is some of the things that kids end up getting into, they're getting into because they don't have this other thing, right? They need this thing to be able to easily avoid the thing that gets them in trouble and gets them derailed.
Right.
And when these things happen to kids who are not in communities like, say, the west side and the south side of Chicago, it's kids doing things kids do, right? When it does happen to kids on the south and west side of Chicago, it's the one striking you're out, right? Because that's just what's going on down there. I can't keep going down there if this stuff's going to keep happening. But that stuff happens because there's more of that to do than there is for you to be someplace where that can't happen, whatever that may be.
That was the other part of what I was going to say, which is you need a deeper commitment on the part of Major League Baseball that says we are going to scout those guys, and we're not going to let the occasional kid who ends up, doing the wrong things screw it for everybody else. Right. So that's got to happen at the highest levels then, right? Because that's what you're talking about. You're talking about the kids that are really close to getting drafted or signed or something.
Right.
And then these scouts just disappear again.
Yeah.
So, look, the other thing that I wanted to tell you about the Kerry Wood adventure, because it was an adventure, it was fun and it was really interesting. And I enjoyed those kids tremendously, because they really, the differences in the community that I was in there and the community that I'm normally in was so amazing to me. And I loved being able to try to teach those kids, because they wanted to play. They hadn't played, but they wanted to. But the other part about that is we had an armed guard at every field.
Yep.
Kerry Wood, the first year he did it with CPD, and they didn't provide enough. He wasn't comfortable if they provided enough. And so he contracted with a private security firm the second year. There was an armed guard at every field that we were on, and there was 3 armed guards in a car patrolling on top of it.
Yeah.
And it was incredibly unnerving.
Yeah.
To know that we were just teaching baseball to a bunch of kids, and yet we had to have armed guards everywhere in that park. It really was just, you think to yourself, this is the world that these kids are in all the time, and the armed guards are not going to be there then.
Right. Yeah, they're
So
not going to be around when these kids come back to their pickup baseball game 2 days later.
There's so many obstacles. There's so many things that these kids have to be able to climb over in order to just have a normal childhood, And now we're talking about all kinds of issues that we all are dealing with as a result of it. Not just baseball. But and then there's the precious few that do make it, and it's always fun to see them, but so many of them seem to be kids of other former big leaguers these days, right?
Absolutely.
They grew up in a different environment.
Yeah, if you grew up in a household where there's organized baseball being played and has been played at somewhat of a high level, the chance that you're going to actually make it to be able to get through playing it at somewhat of a high level is pretty good.
Right.
Yeah.
I have 3 African-American coaches on my staff, which is number one, a lot for us because we just haven't had that many African American kids come in to want to do it. But it's also a lot in general for the business that I'm in. One of them grew up in Evanston, pretty nice, you know.
If I walk out of my house right now and go one block, I'm going to see 3 baseball fields worth of kids, you know, doing something. Yeah.
But the other 2 grew up in neighborhoods that are tough.
Yeah.
And one of them played for the man I mentioned, Ernie Radcliffe. And you can see it in him. You could see Ernie in him. And so it can be done, you know, but it's just too rare. It's just too rare. I mean, I think about when I was a kid and I taught those 22 Hall of Famers in 1971 at that All-Star game. I'll bet you 50% of them or more were African American.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
That was a normal thing for me to see as a kid.
It's normal when I grew up playing and watching the game. And yeah. The change happened somewhere in the late 90s is what it feels like to me.
Yeah, I think you're right, Terry.
Yeah.
I think you're right. And a lot of it was the Hispanic ball players coming in from Puerto Rico, the Dominican, Venezuela. And the scouts went there.
Yes.
And I think that was really what happened is it's not like they decided that they shouldn't scout the African American kids. They just saw these new kids that were coming that were really special, and we better go out and do that.
And at some point, when they are scouting African American kids, they're not necessarily like if South Side where I'm from. If a lot of schools drop their baseball programs, right, then you end up scouting kids at the college level. Which then that just might mean that you're spending a lot of time in Wichita State and in Texas, right? You're spending a lot of time in California, but you're not spending a lot of time on the South and West sides anymore because you're not getting the high school level participation because most of the kids then want to play football and basketball. They want to do that. In my opinion, my read on it is that's what they see. When they're not seeing Black baseball players on their televisions anymore, right? A generation of kids grew up not knowing, you know, they're watching the Cubs. And how many African American baseball players are on the Cubs? Right now, there might be 2. You know, like Jason Hayward and another guy, right? Like, you know, on the White Sox, how many African American players are there? Like, there's probably 3. You know, there's Billy Hamilton, there's Tim Anderson, and there might be one more guy. You know, it's that kind of thing. Whereas in the '80s, we're playing like half the team would have been Black guys. You know, like that. They would have grown up seeing that, and then going immediately out and playing and pretending to be that guy. You know, in my neighborhood, everybody wanted to be Reggie Jackson. We played baseball. Everybody was Reggie Jackson. And if you weren't Reggie Jackson, then, you know, you were like Dave Parker. You know, I was Ken Griffey Jr. all the time, right?
but here's the thing. I'll go back. Now, I grew up right in the 70s in a very white neighborhood.
Yeah.
We all wanted to be Ernie Banks and Billy Williams.
Makes sense.
Because there wasn't a color thing in our head about that.
There's ball players who played good ball.
These were our favorite ball players.
Legendary ball players,
Yeah. I mean, Fergie Jenkins, my God, there could not have been a better pitcher at that time, as far as we were concerned, than Fergie Jenkins.
Yeah.
Ernie Banks was my idol. Meeting him, even as an adult, was like traveling to Mars. I was in just such a spectacular place. So it was just part of what the game was.
Yeah.
And every one of these guys was not a Black ball player or a white ball player. They were a big league
ball player. Sure. Yeah.
And that's what it was for us.
And for my generation, Banks and Williams were done playing by the time we really got into the game, right? In the mid 80s to the early 80s, they were already done. So we were the Leon Durham era, you know, that was us, you know.
Right.
Harold Baines, who played for 30 years. I think he just retired 2 years ago.
Did you was Tony Gwynn too early for you guys?
No, Tony Gwynn was my guy, and Tony Gwynn was good for us as kids because Tony Gwynn was a spherical human being, right? And Tony Gwynn and Kirby Puckett were both spherical human beings who were doing amazing things with a baseball bat. Yeah. So, like, I had fat kid friends who played, and they were like, "If Kirby Puckett's out there doing it, I'm gonna go do it." You know?
Yeah.
Everybody wasn't built like Bobby Dernier, you know what I mean? Like, if there was, when you saw Kirby Puckett and Tony Gwynn, my fat kid friends were like, "I'm playing baseball too. That guy's doing it. Let's go."
This raises an interesting question for me, because it does kind of track back to that whole idea that representation matters. You guys tell me if I'm right or wrong about this, because I have this belief, and it's maybe right, it's maybe wrong. My belief is that white kids can identify with players because they're players and they identify with them, they look up to them, they want to be them, whereas black kids are going to be looking for black players to connect to. Isn't that kind of an assumption we run with?
Well, it's yeah, go ahead, Jim, you can go first.
I was just going to say, because I don't have that frame of reference, right? I don't know how that is. Here's what I would answer that with. We have girls softball players, and I have said this time and again. I know that there are a lot of really great men softball coaches. I want the girls that come to my place to have a female coach, so that they have a role model.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They have a mentor of someone who, it's not that they look like them.
Yeah.
It's that there's a track for them. Hey, guess what?
Yeah.
Aiden played the same type of leagues that you played in. She played travel softball the way you want to play travel softball. She played in high school the way you want to play in high school. She played in college the way you want to play in high school. It's not a man who goes, well, I played baseball.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So at least among the male female thing for me, it's it's having someone who's done the same things, who's been doing the same things. And I can't speak for African American kids. I just don't have that reference.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
For us growing up, part of it was the 80s was an interesting time, right? Because our parents were 60s and 70s people, right? So what I got in my own household was my dad, who was an athlete, noting when there were like black guys doing the thing on the field that was an amazing thing, particularly when they were surrounded by white guys. And my dad came out of playing basketball in the 60s, where it was notable that somebody had fielded the first all African-American starting lineups, right? That was a thing. And so for us, it was absolutely, when we got to like the big stage, like the World Series or something, right? If it's one thing if like, Mike Schmidt's hitting home runs, okay, great, Mike Schmidt's hitting a home run. It's another thing when like Reggie Jackson is just destroying balls and like getting like candy bars named after, right? that became we could all be fans of white players who were doing well in any particular sport we watched, but when like, even when we're trying to make it just about the sport, right? Like, let's say football. In football, we would play football, we wanted to be just about the sport. But then we would hear somebody make a comment that was like, well, black football players are running backs and wide receivers. White players are quarterbacks, right? You get that kind of thing. Yeah, and it's like, well, that's some BS, right? So like, when you see a Christian McCaffrey playing running back, you're like, damn right. We got to remove that. But you see like Doug Williams is starting in the Super Bowl, and it's like, hell yeah, right? Yeah. And it has to be that way because of the number of times someone told you it either couldn't happen or you just didn't see it enough, and then someone was behind why you didn't see it enough, right? There's someone made a decision somewhere that made this more difficult for you to see, Yeah. We supported Sean Dunston in this town at shortstop because even though we knew damn well that dude was gonna swing at balls that were thrown to the hot dog thing. We knew this was going to happen. We supported the hell out of this guy because he was Sean Dunston, and he was in my neighborhood. We all wanted to be Sean Dunston, like Rusty Bits and all, right? Because we had Larry Boa. I remember watching Larry Boa play shortstop and thinking, that dude is 4 feet tall. How the hell he playing shortstop? He's a fire plug with a glove on. What is happening?
Right.
Why is he out there doing that?
But Sean Dunston, you had the Sean-o-meter, man. Everybody loved Sean Dunston.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right? He was excited. But no, I get your point. And it's interesting because I just flashed to something, and I'm now realizing the difference between what I was thinking of and the thing that you were just talking about. I'm Jewish. My mother left Germany in 1933. Her father took the whole family out early. And my mother would never miss an opportunity to point somebody out on TV or somewhere and go, he's Jewish,
It's a Jewish guy. Yeah.
I would just kind of roll my eyes, right? Yep. Because to me, it was like, oh, come on, who cares? But what I'm realizing is the difference was I didn't have a lot of people on the other side going, well, you can't do that because Jews don't do this.
Yes.
Or Jews can't do that.
Yeah.
So that's much different. It's 180 degrees from what you were talking about with a black quarterback.
Yep.
Right. And so I could see where you would feel that pride. And
yeah.
I just
it's what we felt watching Tiger Woods play golf. Right? Because my generation, like my dad's generation, could identify black golfers, right? My dad being an athlete would go out and play golf with his buddies or whatever, but I turn the TV on and I'm watching golf is on the TV. I don't see a lot of black dudes. Tiger Woods they start rebuilding golf courses to make them tiger proof, right? So, oh, wait, we're playing golf too? Oh, excellent. Okay. Now I'm paying attention, you know?
No, it's true. It's true. There's not the representation, and it does become a cycle, I think.
Yeah.
It feeds on itself.
Yeah.
And you don't have kids that look and go, I can do this.
Yeah.
No, I can't do this. It's not my sport.
Yeah. No one does. No one I know does
black
this.
guys playing this.
Yeah.
And Jim, I think that you provided some nuance to this as well when you were talking about the female softball coaches, because I was sitting here thinking, yeah, you would need a female coach because as a girl player, you would need somebody that you could confide in, and you would never confide in a man ever, right?
No, a 12-year-old girl?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not having
happen. Yeah. I mean, you're barely going to confide in a woman, but if you are going to take somebody into your confidence, it's going to be a woman. You know, and that's I'm getting chills too.
And how many guys? Like how many? It's harder for also grown men thinking of themselves. Man, I really hope this young 12-year-old girl is able to confide in me. A lot of times it's like, man, I really hope she doesn't try to confide in me. Don't put that on me.
Yeah, there's a whole thing there. And so
we bring my wife along so she has somebody to talk to, because if it's got to be me, we're in trouble.
Yeah, so this kind of brings together two threads of this conversation, because I think we can very confidently say at this point in time, woman, African-American man, and Jewish American man, right?
Yep.
Or I just call you a Jew. I think that's allowed. You tell me what to call you, Jim. I don't get to do that.
My dad always said, just don't call me late for dinner.
Okay, there you go. You know, I'm your age, you know, and it was like this crossroads where, you know, you weren't sure, was Jew like an insult, or was it like just a statement, and you weren't sure.
Right.
People told you different things all the time, to the point where you just get tongue tied. You just like, I don't know what to say because I don't want to like mess with your head or say something mean, you know, so I'll just say nothing.
Right.
You know? But we'll say that representation matters for each one of us in its own way. Yep. So even just being able to see out there on the field, you know, a Kirby Puckett, for example, you know, and to know to see Kirby Puckett out there on the field, or to see Shawan Dunston, as they used to always call him. When they were coming to bat, they'd be like Shawan Dunston, and we'd be like, we cheered for him in New York. We really did. We sit there.
Well, he was from New York.
Yeah, we loved him. You know, I didn't know that. So there you go. Well, I just knew we loved him. I wasn't sure why, but we'd always cheer for him.
Oh yeah, he was a New York kid.
And so that's why. Yeah, so you see that, and you say, okay, I can do that.
Him being a New York kid, that explains a lot about his style of play. And the things that he wouldn't do that you wanted him to do. That it really does. Because New York ball players, especially black New York ball players, they ain't turning it down for nobody, right? No. They're just not gonna. You can't. The way these kids grew up, there's just no, what do you mean you want me to shorten up? Wait, do what? I'm not gonna get paid shorten up, man. Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah. So you see those guys, and despite the number of voices telling you can't do that, you see these guys doing it, and you're like, I can do that. So, but there's the other side too, which is having that connection, which is something we've also been talking about quite a bit during this cast, you know, that it's not just a matter of seeing them out there on the TV screen or on the field or what have you, but to have that solid interpersonal connection with somebody like you, Jim, like you have with the kids that you mentor, you know, so deep that you're going to be keeping up with them 10, 15, 20 years down the road. You're going to want them to know how you turned out. You're going to want them to see pictures of your kids, or to wear a t-shirt from your college, or all the things that you accomplished. And so those African-American coaches that you're talking about become really this very critical part of knowing that kids are not just getting mentored for life, but our more narrow interest here, which is growing the number of African-American players in the sport.
Right.
So you give an account of at least one of these men campaigning to get scouts in to see a player, and then the potential signee, we'll call him, does something stupid and the scout's out. I heard that and I thought, okay, I don't know what the something stupid is, and maybe that matters to the story a lot. But
well, let's change stupid to criminal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You do have a problem then. Yeah.
No, but it makes them undraftable.
Yeah.
Is the problem.
Yeah.
But again, it then paints all the other kids with that brush.
Okay.
Right.
So that, yeah. So yeah, because I mean, I think I still just want to say that a little bit of that responsibility. I mean, I know the kid did something criminal, but the scouts, I don't think should give up so quickly. And in fact, I don't think they should have to be talked into being in there. I mean,
They're giving up on what they're actually doing is they're giving up on the reaching, right? So like if there's a kid, let's say a kid did a carjacking, but he was also like a prospect, so scouts are looking at him, gets involved, does a carjacking, nobody gets hurt, steals a car. He's definitely done something criminal. He's probably looking at jail time or something. It shouldn't mean the scouts shouldn't look at the other kids on that kid's team who've done nothing wrong whatsoever. But what tends to happen is the scouts pull out all together going, ooh, can't do anything in Inglewood, can't do anything in South Shore, can't do anything in Auburn Gresham, right?
Right.
And it's because like it's the way it's to get out of the neighborhood free card for the scout. Right. That's what it is.
That's the frustration of this friend of mine. Who, like I said, who has spent so much time, and he works with these kids in the inner city all the time. He's done this for 20 years.
Yeah.
And he has pushed and tried to get things to work out for these kids. Yes. In some cases they do, in some cases they don't. But his frustration is that he has to really work so hard to get the scouts to come into the inner city and check these kids out.
Right.
And these are, listen, the way the scouts operate, there's kids that they're going to come in to see because these kids are off the charts and everybody's talking about them.
Yep.
That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the kids that have a shot, that are really good, but aren't necessarily on anybody's radar screen yet.
Right.
And they begin to show up, and now you want these scouts already in place going, okay, I'm keeping my eye on that kid.
No one was going to take a chance. No one's going to take a chance and miss Ed Howard, right? At Mount Carmel. No one's going to take that chance. Ed Howard, in a couple of years, everybody in baseball is going to know Ed Howard's name, right?
100%.
You saw him play for Jackie Robinson West. That was like 6 years ago now, something like that, in the Little League World Series. You saw them win the Little League World Series. You saw them also get their Little League World Series taken away from them. But like this kid now is a prospect, and he's already been drafted. Yeah.
No, he was the number one pick of the Cubs.
Number one pick like a year or two ago.
Last year.
Right. So
number one pick. Yep.
He is going to be up here. You're going to see him, and no one was going to miss that kid, even if it meant they had to go to South Shore. But even when they were doing that, they were going to Mount Carmel, and Mount Carmel is effectively in a decent Southside neighborhood. Let's just say.
Right.
It's bordered by the museum assassin industry and Inglewood, not Inglewood, but 63rd Street. University of Chicago is not far from there. So It's got some rough patches around it, but it's in the Woodlawn kind of area there. Like, it's not the worst, but it's also not the best, you know? But no one was going to miss out on that kid at all.
Yeah.
If they had to get him by Pony Express, they were coming.
But I don't want to lose sight of the fact that it's got to start far earlier. It's got to start
Absolutely.
When kids are little, playing the game.
Yep.
Okay.
And we got to get them playing the game. And there's just not enough of them right now doing it. There are some. There are little leagues, but there just aren't enough.
Right.
So this is a very complex and nuanced solution to a very complex and nuanced and formidable problem.
Unquestionable.
But what we are saying, what you've really helped me understand, Jim, is that there are people in place, right? There's you, there's coaches, there's mentors, there's people all over Chicago, and there's probably people all over the country. You could probably see that when you went to the National Coaching Convention, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right. The will is there, and the compassion is there, and people are drawn to this because they love kids, because they love teaching, they love that reward that you talk about. Where it's like the light bulb goes on, and your teacher does a backflip because it's something that you did, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All of that's in place. The entire structure is in place. So, but there's that saying that when the student is willing, the teacher will appear.
Yep.
But we have all these willing teachers, and the students don't seem to be appearing.
Right. It's a multi-pronged problem.
Yeah.
It's a cyclical problem, right? That's the thing what you were talking about, without the representation, without watching it. But now, with all that said, let me just say this: kids today, the kids that are even playing ball, they don't watch it very much.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They don't watch it. I am stunned when I'm doing camp and I say to the kids, "Hey, did anybody see the White Sox game last night?" No. None of you guys? No. I watched ESPN and I saw a couple of plays.
Right. They saw highlights.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, but that honestly worries me for the long-term health of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that aside, I think that's certainly a bigger problem with young African-American kids.
Yeah.
They're just not seeing the game played.
We need watch parties.
Right. When they don't see anybody that is representative to them of their own, experiences, and the people they look around them and see what they look like, they're going to not be all that interested either.
Right.
It does look like we can't do this.
There you are in Chicago. You have Tim Anderson and Jason Hayward. I mean, if I were a kid I'm like a big kid, I suppose. I mean, I look up to those guys. I look up to those guys so much. I have so much respect for them, and I want to see them do everything that they do. And I have to make an effort because I live in Denver, right? I mean, I have to, get the streaming service and
right.
effort, and I'm willing to do it. And so, I mean, wow, Chicago should be the last place where kids are saying, I didn't watch the game, when you've got those guys and when you've got those teams. And so, I mean, yeah, there needs to be some activity there. And I agree, but that's maybe a long-term problem, whereas the more short-term problem is maybe a little more fixable, because it's not so much Anderson and Hayward as it is all the coaches and all the willing mentors who are right there in place and, working the phone to try to talk a scout into coming and, going out and providing resources and creating opportunities for kids to play. They're all right there. And that's, if we say the problem, there's a lot of ways to frame this problem, but maybe the problem that everybody could fix pretty quickly is each kid right where they're at, feeling just a little bit better about where they're at and where they can get to.
Yep.
And that by itself is such a huge win that, in the end, if baseball gets on board with that, that'd be great, fine. But I mean, it's the kids that count, and it's how they're doing today while we're talking that counts, right?
Yep,
absolutely.
Place, but it's a matter of getting the kids to them. And that's, I don't know if you have any closing thoughts there about how it is that, if you have all these wonderful teachers and mentors and coaches in place and they just don't see the kids playing, how do we get the kids to them? Is there a solution to that? I mean, in your wildest dreams, what would be the answer to that question?
Well, so let's start with the fact that baseball is an incredibly complicated game.
Yeah.
And what I used to tell the coaches when I was a president of the league, and I'd have 80 coaches in a room, and I would say, guys, here's the thing: if we lose a kid because it's not fun for him, if we lose a kid when he's 10, he's not coming back at 12 because he will have missed the learning that he had to do over those 2 years, not even necessarily the skill development, just learning the game. It's so complicated. You don't learn it in one season. When you look at a game like basketball, you dribble the ball, you shoot it. If it goes in, you get points. If it doesn't go in, you don't get points.
Yeah.
All right. There's certainly other rules, but it is about as simple a concept as you could imagine. And if I'm a kid, I don't care what color I am, I'm going to gravitate to something simple like that. Soccer, you see all these kids playing soccer at the age of 5, you run and you kick it. Couldn't be easier, right? And there's a big net over there. You kick it in the net, right?
Yeah.
So, baseball is like, okay, I got to do this, and then I got to do this, and if this happens, then this means this, and like, okay, I need some time to figure this out. So you got to start these kids when they're young. I would love to see them getting these kids started in schools with stuff like this.
Yeah.
Right. In I don't know. Is it recess? Is it just after school programs? Something. I mean, there's got to be a way that you can make this a program and not just a catch as catch can. Whoever shows up, shows up.
Right.
Right. Give some kids the tools, at least an indoctrination to the sport.
Yeah.
And And again, in African American neighborhoods, you look at, you go, we celebrate Jackie Robinson as being the first African American ball player and all he had to go through to do it. And you think to yourself, Jackie Robinson will be spinning in his grave right now, seeing how it's fallen off after all he went through, how it's fallen off in those communities. And, I feel like there's got to be an effort made and say, you know what, this is not just an American game, it's an African American game too.
Yeah.
Right there, the Negro Leagues. Ernie Radcliffe, the guy I mentioned, his uncle was double duty Radcliffe. He was like a Negro League
That's
star.
a legendary. Yeah, that's
Right?
That's awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of connection to this game for these kids. And if you want to track a little bit of history and a little bit of culture and sort of cultural pride, maybe that's a place to begin to sort of say, why aren't we making this part of what's going on?
Right.
Let's find ways to get this, because baseball, reviving baseball in the inner cities, which is the major league program, I don't see much except they have some teams. They form teams. They practice, they play, but I think it's just sort of a little bit. I don't feel like it's a concerted effort. And maybe because I'm not in those communities, I'm not seeing what else is going on with RBI.
Yeah.
But I don't know what there is. It's certainly not very big and very loud.
Right.
So
maybe Major League Baseball's efforts are better spent, for all we know they're doing it. But maybe Major League Baseball's efforts would be best spent for those MLB executives who are listening today. Would be best spent restoring baseball programs to schools which have shut their baseball programs down.
Yeah.
Because the argument is that they don't have the funding.
Yep.
Right?
Restore
they
those
don't have the funding,
parks,
but they also don't have the players.
right? Restore those parks. Make those parks places where a baseball game could be played. Yeah. Right. And then get people out there. Just get them out. Make it so that they can just be out there, just throwing the ball around even.
Right.
Just because it does. Baseball is one of those games that does also require gear at some point, right? But if you just start with a glove, right? You just start with it. Every kid gets a glove. Yeah. Right. Get a glove. Yeah. Break that glove in and just get them out there throwing the ball around. And the next thing you know, it's like, this isn't so bad. You know what I mean? This is actually kind of cool. Right. Right. Hitting off the tee.
I'll just tell you. I used to tell the coaches this: the kids like baseball, but they also like their video games. Yep. They like 1,000 other things. Yep. They need to love this. This needs to be the most fun thing they can do. So if you're a coach, your first job is to find a way to get these kids juiced about the game. And I don't mean juiced in terms of steroids. But just to get them excited about this and show them how much fun this game is. And again, that just cuts across every color or cultural boundary. Kids, they want to have fun.
The heart of youth baseball. I know the answer to that though, because you've heard people joke about it all the time, but it's true, which is that you just have to have a barbecue. Because if you say, well, come and play baseball and we'll have hot dogs and lemonade and potato chips, they're like, yeah, I'm coming.
Yep.
Duh.
Well,
maybe a kid is showing up someplace for hot dogs.
Here's the thing: when I have all the kids at the beginning of Sandlot every Friday, I started off and I have all the kids come to the pitcher's mound of one of the fields. We had 3 fields going last Friday. We had almost 60 kids. And the first thing I say, and a lot of the kids have been there for quite a long time and they know this is coming, they know the answer. I say to them, who does this game belong to? And those kids say, us.
All right.
So that's right. The grown-ups are not here to tell you how to play the game. And I always say, and I know this is going to come back and bite me someday, but guys, sometimes the grown-ups ruin it. Yeah. And I get a lot of this from 13-year-olds all the way down to 9.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, make it less fun.
Yes. So whatever we do, their kids are kids. They want to enjoy it. They want to have fun. Yeah. And whatever we can do to make this thing fun for the kids, that's what'll turn them on to want to play.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters to those kids.
Yeah, they may not want at 9 to 13 to hear a lot about pride or anything that happened before the day they were born or last week for that matter. That can come later. That can come as they start growing up and they start finding out what they're growing up into. But yeah, just for the kids, it's just fun. Yeah,
they love to play. They love to compete.
Yeah,
give them the opportunities to do that, and they will enjoy it. They'll have fun, and they'll want to keep doing it.
Okay. So Terry, we've come a long way from wanting to petition Major League Baseball to.
Oh, I think we accidentally lost Jim.
Oh. Well, those were some good words to close on. I think we've come a really long way from petitioning Major League Baseball to end the draft, and we've landed in petitioning Major League Baseball to bring hot dogs to the park.
Right.
Hand gloves.
Hand out gloves.
Hard is beyond me.
Bring hot dogs and gloves to the park. All right. Well, honestly, I think this might be a great place to end because I don't know if we're going to get Jim back.
I think we hit a great spot to end. Yeah. I'm sure Jim is fine.
I'll text him and say it was the perfect launch off point.
It was beautiful. Carrie, I'm so glad that you found Jim and you brought him in to talk to us because I think this was brilliant. I think he's brilliant, and I love everything that he's doing, and I love his heart. He's a good dude. He's a good guy. Yeah. Yep. So that can be our track record. We'll have guests who are all good guys.
Absolutely. Well, this has been another episode of Drop Third Strike with myself, Terry Gant in Chicago, and my podcast partner, Beth Davies-Stofka in Denver. And we want to thank our guest, Jim Price from Bash Sports Academy, who has dropped off the call, but he probably had to rush off to go and set up a field somewhere.
That's right, no doubt.
We're going to say that's what it was.
Buy the hot dogs and buns, and yeah. And so I think that we could say for those of you that have made it this far with us today, that Jim Price has literally
back. Just come back.
He's connecting to audio, and because I just wanted to say, Jim Price is connecting to audio. Waity. Got the little caterpillar wait sign. There he is. Jim Price is back just in time to hear us. And
Jim, you're muted. You're muted again.
Yeah, still unmuted. Oop. I wish I had but I don't.
You can't. Yeah, we can't do the automatic unmute.
No.
No, he's back. Okay. Yeah.
Oh.
Back.
Some people know how to make an entrance. I know how to make an exit.
Yeah. Well,
it was a perfect dismount. You dismounted at just the right time.
Yeah, we were saying that what you said just before you cut was so perfect. It was such a perfect close to everything that we were talking about. Yeah, it was a mic drop for sure. It was fantastic. So you're back just in time to hear our catchphrase, because I was going to say that every podcast session, we ask people to turn into the love. And I just wanted to say that if anybody has in fact turned into the love, it would be our guest, Jim Price. And we're so lucky.
Thank you.
We're so grateful for you.
I appreciate that so much. That's really great. This was so enjoyable. I really just had a wonderful time.
Great. Thank you, Jim.
We thank you, Jim. And here's your example, people. Jim Price is a great guy, and just once and for all together turn into the love.
Love it.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Terry.
You got
Thank you guys so much.
Yep.
See you later.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.